Hello and welcome to Coop's Corner. I'm your host, Cooper Petagna, and we have a very, very special show for you today as we are joined by none other than Carter, the Power Bryant, former station manager at 91.1 KLSU Baton Rouge. Guy who breaks it down. He's got the best film breakdowns, not only on LSU, college football, the NFL as well. You can follow him at Power Hour LSU on X. Also, on his YouTube page that I believe we're north of 10,000 subscribers on the YouTube page. What time to be alive. Carter the Power Bryant. Welcome to Coop's Corner, man. Long time coming. Let's go. How about that intro, huh?
Cooper, it's the best, man. And I am very fortunate to watch your career flourish. Since this is my first appearance on here, it was an honor to be your first ever boss in sports media. It's still strange to say that. And you are definitely one of my favorite co-hosts ever at KLSU. So it's fun to see where we are now. And it's even funner that we are here in the college football playoff era. We'll get into like the group of five stuff. I know you mostly want to focus on LSU, but Cooper, I know your audience has a heavy tie to the city of Nashville. All right, you got all your friends that have lived in Nashville, and I am perturbed that people cannot separate Diego Pavia, the person, and Diego Pavia, who should have won the Heisman Trophy over Fernando Mendoza. Or at the very least, it should have been a little bit closer. So what say you? If you had a Heisman ballot, how would you have shaped it out?
It's so hard not to vote for Mendoza. Just looking at Indiana and what they've achieved, and I think Clark Lee had one of the best coaching jobs that we've seen. And then Diego Pavia, obviously the straw that stirs the drink for Vanderbilt. And both of them, unbelievable stories. But man, it's hard not to love Mendoza. And you think about Indiana. Yeah. Indiana last year makes the playoffs under Curt Cignetti. A lot of mercenaries coming over from James Madison, for lack of a better term. And then for them to reach that level in their program's history that they had never reached before, and then go from really good to great, to have an undefeated season and cap it off by beating Ohio State in the conference championship. And now they're the number one ranked team heading into the college football playoff in a legitimate, I say this, like the college football playoff runs through Indiana University. Crazy. 2 years into Curt Cignetti is coaching job there, and Fernando Mendoza taking over for Curtis Rourke, and seeing the way that he's elevated that program. I mean, it's hard, right? And I would have gone either way there. I love Pavia. I love what he's about. He's tough. He's a bulldog. All that type of stuff. He's got a ton of swagger. If he would have won it, I wouldn't have had an issue with it. But for me, if I were to vote, it would have been Mendoza. Is that fair?
I think it just, and I just find it, because I know everybody has their own vote. I get that. But the fact that it was the fifth largest gap in Heisman history, I know a lot of people said it was a weaker season, but that's why I'm wearing my only shirt that has the words Nashville on it. My wife went to this pub a few weeks ago, and I'm a big fan of England. So shout out to the pub. They get a free mentions here. I really wanted Pavia to get it because they do play at a slower pace. I don't think their offensive line is all that great. And man, what a freaking season. Now, I know mostly anyone that would be tuning in to this wants my thoughts on LSU. I give it all the time, but I should be thanking you. All right. So this is why you got to subscribe to Cooper's channel. A month ago. All right. Actually, it's more than a month ago. You were on my show, and it was funny. We were signing off. You were signing off, and then you put my feet to the fire. You flipped it on me, and you said, "Hey, Carter, why am I on your show when we don't even give predictions on who we actually think the next coach is going to be?" And you asked me, you're like, "Hey, who do you think it's going to be?" And I said, "Well, I think it's going to be Kenny Dillingham." And then I was like, "Well, let me just ask you." and you said, I think it's going to be Lane. And it was a viral clip on Twitter. If you haven't seen it yet, you could see it for yourself. I clipped it because you said 6 out of 10 confidence at the time. Now, what they didn't know, and what makes this really impressive on your end, is that you said that the night before Jeff Landry did what he did. All right. So there was a big governor rant. And then you're like, oh, well, I don't know now. But you were right. Whatever sources or just how you were reading the tea leaves, you were correct. You took a lot of heat for it. And you deserve a lot of credit for that. Because what did I tell you a few days later? One of my top guys at LSU said, who was that guy on your channel? And then that was when I knew that there was something there. Okay. So it's interesting. You are an amazing media personality. And the fact that you called it is nothing short of incredible. So here's what I'm going to do before you ask me anything, LSU. I want to flip it on you here, Cooper.
Oh, we're starting
Your
early.
thoughts on
What you
how
got?
everything. Yeah, I'm going to do it. Your thoughts on how everything has actually unfolded over the past couple of weeks?
Just generally, like, what are my thoughts?
Yeah. Like, what do you, because obviously we have the offensive staff pretty much in place. We'll see what happens with this Kevin Smith situation, but just your thoughts on the staff and what you think the biggest hurdles are going to be for Lane over this next month or so.
I think getting Charlie Weiss, Charlie Weiss Jr., even though I think a lot of people thought that was just something that was going to naturally happen. But when they decided to go in the direction of retaining Pete Golding at Ole Miss, you knew Charlie Weiss Jr. was going to be a high priority for them. And the fact that they would welcome in Charlie Weiss Jr. after he left Oxford to go to Baton Rouge and say, hey, come back and coach this team, because we all know the feelings of Lane Kiffin's pursuit of trying to coach this team in the playoffs. That says a lot about Charlie Weiss Jr., that they would let him back in the building along with a couple of the other assistants as well. So I think that's big. To me, I would say the thing that stands out the most is being able to retain Blake Baker, because Tulane is a really good job. Tulane's probably the best job in the group of five. And I mean that as, like, I talk to a lot of people, I'm from New Orleans, that are Tulane fans that have this frustration of Tulane becoming somewhat of a revolving door from John Summerall to Willie Fritz. But I continue to harp on this. It's like, what a blessing to be able to have that opportunity to continue to take the next coach that you can officially knight and say, hey, 2 to 3 years from now, we might be in the position where we're going to have to fight to keep this guy, right? Because he's going to be one of the more attractive candidates. Now, is that the case with the hire that they made in Will Hall? Who I like Will Hall. I think Southern Miss is one of the toughest jobs in the country. We don't know who Will Hall is. Offensive coordinator at Tulane, used to be the head coach at Southern Miss, got promoted after John Summerall left. So we'll see what happens. You know, that's a big thing for Tulane. They got to continue to kind of hit on it. But back to the point of LSU, I think the continuity of Blake Baker is critical. I think continuity with Corey Raymond is also huge. The biggest question marks that I have for LSU, and there may be 3 of them. What do you do at defensive line now that Kyle Williams is gone? It's not so much replacing him, but how do you get LSU back to the standard of being the best unit in the country, one of the best units in the country, because that was always the MO, really kind of in the Saban, Les Miles years. And it's harder to build that type of top-end talent, that type of depth. Like even Georgia with the Jordan Davis and the Jalen Carters and all the guys that they had sent through that program, they're struggling with it in the NIL era. They're still extremely talented, but it's hard to reload on those guys because everybody wants those guys. So LSU off to a great start. They don't even have a defensive line coach. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know where they're at with Elijah Robinson right now, but it sounds like that's not going to happen.
No.
But being able to get Lamar Brown and Richard Anderson signed in the December signing period, huge win for Lane Kiffin. So defensive line, critical. I like what they've done on the defensive side of the ball. And then offensive line hiring, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric Wolford. Is that the name?
Yeah. Yeah, from
from
Kentucky.
Kentucky, had been at Alabama. Obviously, somebody that's respected in the SEC. TBD on how I feel about that. I think from a player development standpoint, you can understand it. Talent acquisition, they're going to have to continue to give him the bodies to work with. Running back, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the Louisiana political conundrum where I think there's two sides of the coin here. Where when you get into the Frank Wilson conversation and you get into the Ed Orgeron conversation, you have a lot of people that say, retain him, bring him back. We need him. And to me, I'm like, well, what's the value outside of the value that you are maybe a little bit apprehensive of taking a hit when it comes to recruiting in New Orleans, especially when it comes to Frank
Right.
Wilson. But when you talk about developing that position outside of flashes that we saw with Harlem Berry, this is not really the same running back room that we had been accustomed to seeing under Frank Wilson. So to me, running back, if Lane wants to go his own way, bring his guy over from Ole Miss. I completely understand that. But offensive line, running back, defensive line, those are the three for me. And I don't think it's less about the talent acquisition, but can you get the people in there that can maximize those positions?
Yeah, and I have gone back and forth on should you keep Frank or should you bring over Kevin? I think at this point, if you're Lane and Kevin's been your guy for this long, I think that is a very justified move to make. Uh, and look, I think the Jabbar Jaluk domino going to Texas was interesting. So it'll be fascinating to see how that develops. Now, to your point, this LSU running back room, it is wild to me that a guy like Caleb Jackson just fell off the face of the earth after what he did as a true freshman. So to your point, there's questions about how this room has been developed. Is it just scheme? What exactly is it? So we'll see. And then as far as the defensive line is concerned, can they generate a pass rush? They had Braden Swinson 2 years ago. Can they find someone that could just fly off the edge? They had decent defensive end play to very good defensive end play from Jack Pyburn and Patrick Payton versus a run. But can they get back to generating pressure? I think part of why they brought Blake Baker back is you look at a team like Georgia, who you and I talk about quite a bit. They didn't have a pass rush, and rightfully so. You lose Walker, and you lose the first rounders that they lost. Uh, Look, they did a bunch of twists and stunts versus Alabama. They were able to make it work this past weekend with LSU. A guy like Blake Baker is able to generate those pressures with all those different exotic looks. And to your point about retaining him, I am happy that they retained him. I think one thing Lane is going to help Blake with is situational football, where LSU had a bunch of big coverage busts in big moments where they were giving up walk-in touchdowns. It was Oklahoma, and then it was Vanderbilt, and then it was Ole Miss. And those offenses outside Oklahoma are good offenses. You don't want to make it easier on them. And there are some wide open touchdowns given up there. So, Cooper, I'll be honest. From an LSU perspective, I am super excited about the future. And now it gets to the big question. What is Lane going to do at quarterback in the transfer portal?
Mm.
And I just keep going back to what you said on my show. Sam Levitt or bust. I love me some Sam Levitt, but I do think Lane is going to try and figure out what's going to happen with Trinidad and this waiver, and what Trinidad's going to want to do for his last year of college football eligibility.
I think if Trinidad Chambliss gets another year of eligibility, and I have no idea where Trinidad Chambliss is leaning or what that would look like if he did get another year. I would imagine the connection with Lane Kiffin, who is majority responsible for putting him in the position that he's in, would be too much to pass up if you're both Chambliss and if you're Kiffin. And for the point of Kiffin is, even with Sam Levitt out there, we can go through some other names as well. Maybe Brennan Sorsby or Drew Mestamaker. And I'm not saying all those guys are fits. Austin
Yeah.
Simmons, right? I'm just throwing names out. But let's talk about Levitt and Chambliss. I think the continuity between those two and the synergy, and obviously working with each other this past year to be able to light the flame immediately in Baton Rouge where the expectations are sky high from year one to reach a college football playoff, I think that would be too difficult for Lane Kiffin to pass up. Now, the other name that we didn't talk about was Bryce Underwood. And that goes into like the managing the short term and the long term. Like how much is the Bryce Underwood, you're still developing this player, even though he's ultra talented, versus a guy like a Chambliss or a Levitt that schematically just kind of fit right in and are ready to go. So I kind of look at it
Yeah.
from a timeline type of thing. And the other part about it is maybe Lane, and I'm, tinfoil hat for all the people listening out there, right?
Yeah.
These are purely speculative, hypothetical situations that are all very possible, right? But the Bryce Underwood thing, maybe if you're Lane, you say, you know what? It is year one, and I know the pressure in 2027 and beyond is going to be cranked. I know that I can do a lot with a uber talented Bryce Underwood. And if we win 9, 10 games and we don't reach the playoffs, I still have the caveat of kind of dangling the fruit at the end of the vine to say, hey, this kid's got another year, and that development that takes place in 2026, you can sell the upside. But I don't know. I think if Chambliss is on the table, I think it's going to be way too difficult for Lane Kiffin to pass up.
One quick thing before we get to the next topic with Chambliss. Chambliss. It's so fascinating to me that he had more passing yards this year than Mendoza without those 2 extra starts, which in turn is just 1 extra start because, Mendoza was in the championship game. And I know Ole Miss plays at a far faster pace than any one of the Heisman finalists, but it is just amazing how good Trinidad was. And if you actually sat and watched it, particularly that Mississippi State game, man, there was yards left on the table. And, that's the thing that I keep telling people about Lane. And just for your audience, I was such a big Kiffin guy. And so I've been doing the LSU YouTube stuff for so long. And then back in 2021, you can go back and watch all the old Power Hour LSU videos. I actually did this video. Cooper, I'm going to say this, and I hope it doesn't, get anyone angry. I was high when I did this video. I had a not off the good stuff, but the good stuff. I'd had a tooth surgery when I cut this video at the time.
I'm glad you gave that a little context on the tooth surgery.
Yeah. Your audience was like, "There's no
Didn't know
way.
what to expect.
What kind of deviance are you having on your channel here?" But no, so you can go back and watch the video. It's my final coaching list of what I want, and Lane was my 1B candidate. It was Lincoln Riley 1A, Lane Kiffin 1B. So I have been a Kiffin fan for the longest, and I'm so excited that he's making this move, even though back in 2021, the birdies have told me plenty of times that Lane was very interested in the LSU opening. And so he makes this move, right? You got Saban telling him, you got Pete Carroll telling him, you would regret not taking this opportunity. And so I get this question a lot, Cooper. I'm not the biggest LSU YouTuber or anything like that, but some people have asked me, why do you like Lane so much? Why? It's because this man has done what he has done with a wide array of quarterbacks, right? It's fascinating to me that Chambliss, obviously a D2 quarterback, obviously a transfer, number one, to convince him to join this room with Austin Simmons. Remember, this is not the first time that Lane has convinced other extremely talented quarterbacks to join really talented quarterback rooms, right? I don't know what Lane did to tell Spencer Sanders to spend your 5th year of eligibility behind Jackson Dart, but that is one of the best recruiting jobs I can ever remember. And then Walker Howard, that happened. And it just doesn't matter. Lane makes stuff work, okay? And when you watch, you're like, man, there is even more meat on the bone there on that play. So for me, in the modern day of college football, the number one thing is who your quarterback is for that year. That's the case with any football team. Well, in college, quarterbacks rotate, 4 years eligibility and all of that. Lane makes me feel more comfortable in that aspect. All right. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to do. I don't think it needs to be Chambliss. I would prefer it. I'm a huge fan of how he plays the game. And I'm really excited to see what he's going to do in the portal there. And then obviously, Cooper, you're the transfer portal master. I need your strong opinion on, can you truly rebuild an offensive line just through the transfer portal? It's impossible, right?
It's not impossible because Ole Miss has shown the last couple years that they're able to kind of piece it together to be good enough, right? Are they putting guys out there that are early day NFL draft choices? Not really, but they've done a really good job and a commendable job over the last couple years getting the big bodies that they need to manage really kind of a legitimate run game to marry with the passing game as well. But the other point, and I'm going to get back to this.
Yeah, go on.
To me, what was so critical in the Brian Kelly era under Joe Sloan and Mike Denbrock that I'm not even sure they really noticed or understood. Certainly they did. But the mobility of Jaden Daniels, and it seems so silly to talk about that now, knowing what he became, a Heisman Trophy winner, a top 5 pick, rookie of the year, so on and so forth. But to go from that skill set to Garrett Nussmeier, who is an average to below average athlete in the pocket that gives you no mobility in terms of being able to extend plays. I thought about that when I watched Ole Miss in the beginning of the year, and Austin Simmons is a good enough of an athlete to extend plays and make you respect him as a runner, but he's not Trinidad Chambliss. He's not elusive. He's not a guy that can improvise, get you out of tough situations, pick up first downs with his legs. That's not him. And in this day and age of college football, I just feel like that's so critical. And listen, the teams at the top, Indiana, Fernando Mendoza, Ohio State with Julian Sain, Oregon with Dante Moore, all three of those have really good established offensive lines. So I give them credit. But that's the type of environment that pocket passers will thrive in college football. If you don't have that, then you need to have somebody that can create and that can play make. And that's where I believe a Trinidad Chambliss or a Sam Levitt become very attractive to a Lane Kiffin. And I think Chambliss to them in Oxford was kind of this guy that they stashed, they liked, they realized they didn't have a ton of confidence in maybe A.J. Maddox, who was running number 2 at that point, went out, got Chambliss. And Chambliss really didn't have much going on outside of Temple, right? And Ole Miss goes out and they pick him up in the spring. And I don't think they even really knew what they had until he was forced to play after an Austin Simmons injury in Kentucky. And I say all that to say that I think LSU is going to be in a comparable situation, regardless if you bring back Tyree Adams or Weston Davis. I would expect Lane Kiffin to bring in competition at all 5 spots. LSU's offensive line just wasn't good enough. Now, to do that and say, hey, this is going to be a unit that's going to be top third in the conference, that's a tough ask. Top half, if you can do that, great. It's really all you need, right? Because I think what they're going to do is they're going to throw a ton of volume at the skill spots, at running back, at receiver, because I think Lane Kiffin in the transfer portal with receiver in the running back position, now even the tight end with what they've done with Daquan Wright, is just going to be shooting fish in the barrel, and this is going to be heavily reliant upon scheme fit with talent at the skill spots. And can you do enough on the offensive line?
Yeah.
Does that vibe?
Yeah.
Does that check out?
Yeah, no. I because you look at the transfer portal data every day, and LSU's 2 best offensive linemen this year were transfers. So you're. I
Well,
am
I mean,
hoping because
I wish I had this pulled up. I could pull it up. I'm trying to even think who the top offensive tackle is right now in the portal. Portal's kind of crazy right now, and this is a good segue. I don't want to get too much into it, but obviously I'm going to talk
no
some
no
portal
no
coming
go.
up with the portal starting January 2nd. I oof, I got to get my numbers right, but I want to say it was oof, the number of players that we had graded 87 or higher, which is kind of the line of demarcation of what I think like an impact player is at the Power Four
Yeah,
level.
yeah,
Um, was around. God, I better be right on this. Let me double check. I want to say it was around 500 or so players. And
yeah. Oh,
right now we've graded, I believe we've graded close, probably over 600 players. I've graded over 600 players already in the transfer portal. And there is not shoot I we're less than 10 that have draftable grades, projectable draftable grades.
wow,
And the
wow.
highest
So,
offensive lineman I have, I believe, is a left tackle out of UConn that, you know, I have a priority free agent grade on. So
wow.
the point that I'm making is the
Yeah.
quality in the portal at both the offense and the defensive line. Now, I will say there's a young man that jumped in the portal from Wake Forest, defensive lineman. Watch today, 6'3", 290. He's either going to be the number one ranked or number two ranked player in the portal, right up there with Nick Marsh. True, like day two grade. If he came out today, I think he'd probably go in the third, late day two. But like
Oh, okay.
those guys right now, like I know it's still relatively early, but the timeline for the portal is interesting because you have a lot of teams that maybe some have had their exit interviews, maybe some haven't. Maybe some are deliberately pushing off their exit interviews after the bowl games, but we have not seen this like faucet turn on in the portal yet. And I wonder with, you've seen it with teams like USC out there with like an NFL free agency um, type of signing their players to say, hey, we've extended multiple
Yeah.
players on multiple year deals. And it's kind of like, man, what world am I living in? But you wonder that these teams are just getting
Extensions.
right, getting better and better about being able to retain talent. And are you going to see true day one, day two type of talent ever hit the market if teams know what they have in those type of players? And think about
Yeah,
the two
that's
guys that I
that.
have ranked
I've
number
seen
one
that.
and number two. Michigan State, coach got fired. Wake Forest,
Yeah.
and this is nothing against Wake Forest. Jake Dicker did a really good job this year, but like that guy's going to go get more money somewhere else. That's just the reality.
Right. Ah, dude, it's gonna be wild, man. I'm not shocked that there weren't as highly graded players, but I am shocked you have already gone through 600 of them. That's fascinating to me. So, yeah, I can't. God, I can't freaking wait for this portal period. I really can't. For me, I look at a school like LSU in particular. I don't even know where they are going to rebuild. I think Cooper just dropped out. I could talk on his channel as long as you guys need me to. I don't even know where I would even start when it comes to recruiting the offensive line for LSU. For me, you look at a guy like Cohen Eccles, who is a decent guard with decent mobility. I feel as if he is a guy that could turn into something, but it gets into when it's an offensive lineman in particular, those guys don't leave the field, right? They're on the field and they're impacting basically every single play. Whereas a wide receiver, there's more of them in the transfer portal, but they're also rotating more often year in or play in and play out. And one thing I've seen Cooper as far as like this gets more into like film and play design, what the best OCs have done, and this is what Heupel does basically better than anyone, they just call plays where the offensive line really has very little impact on the play itself, right? It's quick screens, it's run actions. It's we show you a run action and we're actually running the complete opposite way. So all the offensive linemen are just decoys. Um, a lot of these OCs have to me, and one play caller explained this to me, not at the SEC level, but he's at a lower college level. He said, "Hey, I'm doing whatever I can to put less on my offensive line on every single play." And that's quick game. It's, quick zones and all of that where, I'm sending all my offensive line one way and I'm running to the opposite. I go back to me, the best coach game by Lane this past year is a completely different tangent was versus Kentucky. Simmons was struggling, and to end that game, he used Chambliss some in the run game. And then he ran two of those plays back to back where offensive line goes all in one direction. We're sweeping the running back in the opposite. And he had been setting it up and then just saving those plays for later. I don't think he had ran that all game. And that's where having an elite play caller really, really, really helps out. And you mentioned Joe Sloan. He now goes to Kentucky. I know Stein's going to call the shots, and I know you love you some Will Stein. The Kentucky news actually dropped when you were live on with me. I am so excited to see what Weiss and Lane are going to do with the LSU offense, and that was a problem. Is LSU's offensive line was bad, their tight ends were bad at blocking, and they called a lot of plays where those guys needed to execute their blocks for the play to be successful. So that's one thing I'm really excited about Lane coming over. So one thing I wanted to ask you, and this is not LSU related, but I look at the college football playoff field. All right, I've not picked a winner yet. I can't leave the show without asking you, Cooper. Is there a team? Maybe it might not be the best team, but the way that this bracket shapes up, is it Indiana? How are you feeling about this?
Well, let's go outside of the top four. All right, the teams that had the buys first, and let's talk
Yeah.
about maybe a couple of those matchups. 5 versus 12, Oregon versus JMU. Strongly favor Oregon in that matchup. Ole Miss versus Tulane. I think Ole Miss is going to be charged up. But if that game is a little
Yeah.
leaky, I mean, I expect Tulane, Summerall to throw the kitchen sink. I think the other thing that a lot of people are discounting, I mean, these guys saw each other earlier in the year, right?
Hard to beat
Yeah,
a team
it
twice,
is.
Cooper.
But I just wonder, like, different environment, college football playoff, you're on the road. I don't know. Does that help Tulane? Like what is, or am I putting too much value into that? Like, what does this kind of look like? I thought Tulane played really well versus a North Texas team who I just love under Eric Morris and Drew Mestamaker. But I
Yeah, they're
have Ole
good.
Miss in that game. All right, here's a matchup that fascinates me the most. A&M versus Miami. Mario Cristobal, everybody who listens to this show knows I used to work for Mario. Miami to me is more dangerous as a 10 seed than they would if they were a team that has a bye. They're not a front runner program. Like they're not built to be front runners. Because every time that they are, they spill the chili. But you put them
Spill
in
the chili.
a 10 seed and you have a team that is built like an SEC roster, strong on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Ruben Bain, Hakeem Messidor, David Blay. Like they can get after it a little bit. Secondary, they've done a lot better job there, especially with how much they invested. Carson Beck, an experienced quarterback, he's been in these type of environments before. Like if you're Mario Cristobal, the culmination and the money that you spent on this roster is for this moment. And there are a lot of games where I look back in Mario Cristobal's career where whether he was at Oregon, where he was discounted, specifically the one when he was at Oregon and he went to Columbus at Ohio State and he won that game. And I think about like punching up and letting it go and just letting it rip as the underdog. That's Mario Cristobal to a T. So I would not be surprised if Miami got that one done in College Station. That's the one that I kind of got circled because that's kind of the Mario Cristobal MO. Now, Miami is a favorite. Miami is a team that has a clear path and a favorable schedule to go to the CFP.
You know what?
That's a little bit different, right? And, so yeah, man, that one's interesting. And then Oklahoma, Alabama. I don't know. I mean, Ty Simpson, to me, it seems like the lack of run game has finally caught up to Alabama. Here's the other thing, Carter. You and I talked about it on your show. It's been a little bit different for Alabama in the passing game since they played who? LSU. I thought Blake Baker, second, third level blitzes kind of opened the book for everybody else on how to play Alabama and Ty Simpson and get after him. And that's kind of what we've seen. I thought Georgia kind of had a similar playbook. I thought Oklahoma kind of had a similar playbook.
Yeah.
And you're talking about two teams with Georgia's front seven starting to come on big time. Oklahoma's got one of the best in the country. Like, there's nothing that I've seen from Alabama in the last month that makes me think that this result might be any different.
I'm with you. I think for me, if I could bet one quadrant that I think could, basically roll through this, it's whoever wins the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, right? If I could bet Miami, Texas A&M, or Ohio State versus a field, I would take that. I love all three of those teams. I think when I look at A&M, yeah, of course, A&M had one of these softer SEC schedules, right? And as you know, Cooper, the 9-game conference schedule is going to help alleviate this, but SEC, with the way that the league is set up, there's huge imbalances with the schedule, and A&M was a beneficiary of that. But man, I love watching this Texas A&M team. I love watching Elko. I love watching Colin Klein. Is he going to be distracted with what he has ahead of him now in Manhattan? But man, I could see a world where Miami or A&M could go into Ohio State and win this whole damn thing. I really do believe it. And out of any of these teams in the field, I've done a Georgia film study every week. Man, I just don't understand how, and it could just be that I watch them every week. I know Graham Coffey or Brooks Austin that covers a team like every day, but this was, to me, Kirby Smart's best coaching job ever. Like, this is a team with a struggling pass rush, a new starter. They lose a quarterback that's on another playoff team. And Kirby won 4 games this year where it looked like they were going to lose. Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama. Well, not Alabama. Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, and the other ones, Tennessee. The other one slipped in my mind, whatever one it was. It is ridiculous how good of a coach this guy is. So I'm not in love with this Georgia team by any stretch of the imagination, but it is just so hard for me to not want that Georgia-Ohio State rematch. I want that so freaking bad in the Fiesta Bowl. I really, really, really do. So for me, let me give you a spicy one. A&M wins this whole damn thing. Why not? I got to give you a spicy one here. Cassius Howe. I love a team in a playoff scenario where I can trust that guy to go make me a big defensive play when I need it to be done. I think too much has been made of A&M's schedule, if you will. I think A&M got a raw deal, not getting the 6 instead of Ole Miss. I've looked at their resumes tooth and nail. I think so much of the focus was on the Notre Dame situation, where really that 6-7 battle was, to me, oh God, I knew it. I knew it.
6-7.
That would be something more what I would do, dude. It drove. Honestly, now that you've done that, I haven't actually put that together. Maybe this was a grand scheme by Hunter Yurachek, who loves a 6-7 joke, for us to talk about this right now. So I I really do think Texas A&M has the juice to go into Ohio State and get the job done. Obviously, they would need to beat Miami in the first round, but man, I as much as I've watched A&M this year, I know the South Carolina result was what it was, a big lucky comeback victory, but man, I just love this team. I love Torian York. I always cheer for the not the biggest, not the fastest, but damn, they're smart and they always know where to be. You know, Desrick's a corner always scares you there, but I just think they have enough. I don't know why this is. This would be the most anti A&M thing in the world. And now that I've said this, go bet Miami alternate spread by 20 and a half to take care of business. But that is my boldest take.
I
A&M
like
makes
it.
a run at this
I
thing.
think we are destined for a Georgia Ohio State rematch in the Fiesta Bowl. I think Ohio State gets
Okay.
Miami in the Cotton Bowl, and I think Ohio State, to me, obviously you can make the claim that they're the most complete team in the country. We just saw the Big Ten championship, so it's hard not to mention Indiana there. I think you get Ole Miss, Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. I think Georgia, to me, this is such a weird way of looking at it, but I look at three teams in this entire bracket, like from a DNA standpoint, like from a straight psychosis of who they emulate. I think about three teams, and I think that's really, really important. The three teams to me: Georgia, Kirby Smart; Oregon, Dan Lanning; and Indiana, Kurt Signetti.
Okay.
I just think like those are
Here it
just the
comes.
teams that I trust. You know what I'm saying? Because I trust the people leading the ship there. Like those guys are all a little bit different. They're all kind of foam at your mouth competitors. All understand the art of roster building and all understand the art of continuing to stack days and get better. And I'm not saying that the other 9 teams in the field don't understand that as well. But when it comes to confidence and conviction, those are the three I feel the best about. And then certainly the offensive pedigree of Ryan Day and Ohio State and where they can go and what they can be. And then Matt Patricia as well. I mean, that defense is still arguably the best in the country. Now, at the top of the bracket, Oklahoma, Indiana is kind of interesting, you know, at the Rose Bowl. Even Alabama,
Yeah.
if they get through Oklahoma, like I'm fascinated in that matchup. I think that matchup would be awesome. And then Oregon, Texas Tech, man. Like, I don't think enough people are talking about Texas Tech. Their front seven: Lee Hunter, David Bailey, Romello Height, Jacob Rodriguez. This is a team that's lost one game. They didn't have their starting quarterback, and they're on the road against Arizona State. They lost it in the last 2 minutes. I just wonder if
Right.
we would be talking about Texas Tech differently if they didn't have that one loss next to their name. And every other game, they've taken care of business and done it exceptionally well.
I would have loved.
So I think there are a couple Easter eggs in here, a couple sleepers. Like I wouldn't be surprised if, a couple brackets get busted because one or two teams that we're just not talking about has enough talent to come out, and if they play their best game, they're good enough to win and knock off one of these top teams in the country.
All right. Well, for me, I'm going TAMU. It's an all Texas final. TAMU
Oh
versus Texas
my
Tech
God.
for the whole
You're
shebang. Dude, why I gotta give you a Desmond Howard bracket to get these clicks up, man.
that
That's
is
part of the game.
wild.
You need a guest that's willing to put his reputation out there, and we will have Mike Elko catching the tortillas in Miami. The Texas Tech fans are going to be throwing their flour circular objects towards Mike Elko. He's going to catch it. He's going to eat it while holding the national championship trophy. Cannot believe I jump on your channel the first time and say something nice about the Texas A&M Aggies.
Who's
You
your
know,
champ?
you know, I'm
Mm.
going Aggies. Let's go. Come on, it's going to be the second consecutive year a team playing in the first round is gonna run this thing. Now, do I trust Texas A&M in a cold environment versus Ohio State on New Year's Eve to get it done? You bet your ass they're going to get it done versus Ohio State. Now, do I truly believe that? I'll leave that to myself. But someone's got to give you the bold take here. So Elko Klein, don't let me down. Marcel Reed, don't let me down.
I'm gonna go.
This wouldn't be my first. This wouldn't be my first Texas A&M opinion I've gotten wrong. I thought Connor Wigman was going to be like really good, and he is fine. But you know that's not here nor there.
I'm going to go Oregon, Georgia. Dan Lanning versus Kirby Smart. I mean, you might as well just be looking in the mirror. Fire
Dude,
me up. And I think it's going to be Oklahoma that potentially shocks some people in the Rose Bowl with a win over Indiana. Fear the tier, you know. I just that defense. Indiana's they're it's so funny because it's like, what else do they have to do to show anybody that they're the best team in the country? They continue to do it, you know.
Well, this would be my question about Indiana versus Oklahoma in the second round. Is if I'm Indiana, I would much rather play Alabama because I don't want anything to do with Brent Venables and what he could do in the playoffs. I think one thing, and this is like just a deep film study kind of thing here, but I want everyone to actually go back and watch every single play of the LSU Clemson game. And Venables had LSU in a blender in the early portions of that game. It's just Joe Burrow was a Super Saiyan, if you will. And there were so many plays where guys were just coming through untouched. And Joe just avoided it. He would throw it away or avoid a big sack to where instead of it being a 9-yard sack, it was like a 2-yard sack or a 3-yard gain. And Venables has just been so good in big moments with Oklahoma and these pressure schemes. And if you're Indiana, let me see, who would you say Indiana, the best defensive mind that they played this year would be?
Matt Patricia, for sure.
I guess Patricia. Or, you know, Wisconsin doesn't have the dudes. I respect Fickle. Knowles at Penn State, not really. Indiana knows him pretty well. It's just Venables is just a different animal. I know they beat Lanning earlier this year, but in a big moment, I trust, and I'm not a big Venables guy in terms of being a head coach, but dude, he's just nasty. He is absolutely nasty in a big spot. So him versus Sig is the second round matchup I want. I also hate Alabama, but I want to see Oklahoma play versus Mendoza. I think that would just be a legendary
for sure. And I'm not taking anything away against Indiana. It wouldn't surprise me if Indiana just continued to shut everybody up and go win the national championship. I mean, they continue to have the chip on their shoulder. All right, let's get out of here on this question. Yeah. Michigan, Sharon Moore's out. Crazy story there. We don't even need to get into it. They're looking for a new head coach. They need to have one in the next 3 weeks. Kenny Dillingham, more than likely, re-upping, staying with Arizona State. Kalen DeBoer came out, put out a statement today. He's not talking to anybody else. If you're Michigan, where do you go?
Yeah, so I saw an interview with your guy Josh Pate. I don't know if anyone's heard of this guy before, but he's a really up and coming college football YouTuber. So check out Josh Pate on all college football platforms. Guy, he needs a bump.
He doesn't need any help.
My endorsements. I think he's really good. I mean, do you agree?
He's good. He's living the life. I mean, he's jetting to New York, and he's got ESPN. He's got Bussin' with the Boys. He's got Yahoo Sports. He is, not to get too off track here, one of the most incredible savvy,
No, you go
savvy,
for it. I know
savvy
y'all are
business minds
friends.
that I've ever been around, just in terms of knowing how to maximize his exposure. But other than that, let's get back to Michigan. What was he saying?
Yeah. So he said they would win so ginormously big if Kenny Dillingham was a guy. And if I'm Kenny, I don't know why I wouldn't jump at the opportunity here to go coach at Michigan, which is to me one of the 10 best jobs in the sport. And I think Moore fumbled literally one of the best opportunities, right? And obviously, the first thing I would do if I'm Michigan is seriously consider just scraping everything down to the studs. I mean, just take every last thing you could think of when it comes to coaching this team, and ask yourself, do I really, really, really need this person? Because I want to rid myself of everything regarding this era. Okay. Now, as far as who I would go for, uh, I mean,
Hmm.
Clark Lee's off. I think he would
He'd
be a
be the
great fit
guy.
there. Yeah, he would just be so perfect for what they're about there. Get a true focused in guy that's not gonna, just go off the straight and narrow here. I would just be so in on Dillingham. I mean, if you wanted someone that could hop from one job to another, why not call up old Charles Huff? You go from one M to another there, and he's already coached at another M. That would be something I would consider way down, but I think their sights are set even higher. Um, I saw what Heupel said or allegedly said about the Penn State opening. I would seriously consider Josh Heupel seeing what he wants to do, but it looks like he's locked in at Tennessee. So I Cooper, I've gone back and forth on it. When you asked me to come on here, you said, "Hey, I'm going to
Hmm.
ask you about Michigan." I just don't know. I honestly have no idea what direction Ward Manuel's going to go, but I don't know. I think most of the guys that you would want that have big P4 experience are already locked into their jobs. So what do you do in that spot?
I think the best they could do, and I like, to me, the analogy we always had when we missed out on top targets, or that analogy that I had, not all our coaching staff loved it, was, hey, let's get on base, right? Uh, we were in the pitch count that we liked. We wanted to clear the bases. We wanted to hit a home run. Now we're behind. Let's take what we can get. And Michigan should have higher standards, but the nuance of this, understanding that the timing of it is awful. I mean, even just 2 weeks ago, if if Michigan were to come out and say, "Hey, we concluded our investigation and we're moving on here," which I don't have all the facts. It sounds like the young lady that was involved, all this kind of came to a head the day that Sharon was ended up being let go. That being said, I believe this was being investigated for quite some time. So let's say they moved up the timeline even 2 weeks. That's a completely different search than what it is now.
Right.
So I think a guy like Jed Fish, another guy that's definitely willing to move, but
Yeah.
he was part of that Harbaugh tree, right? And Ward Manuel, uh,
Yeah.
in my estimation, I don't think is going to make it out of this thing alive. I don't think you can get out of the sign stealing investigation along with this and then still live to tell the day. Like, it's just not going to happen. I think there's been too many issues that he's been involved, just in terms of, it might not be his fault, but it is his responsibility as athletic director, right? He ultimately, at the end of the day, is hiring these people. So Jed Fish would be the guy. And I think Jed Fish, I mean, you look at the job that he did at Arizona and Washington, and the way that he's got them trending very quickly. It's not the sexiest name, and part of that is probably because he's done that to himself, because he's jumped so much. He's got to kind of reinvent himself again. Um, but he'd be one of those guys that understands that place. And I think the biggest thing for Fish is that he's always wanted more resources. Wherever he's been, he's wanted more and more resources. This is a place that does not lack that. And I think he's got kind of the cold, dry FU Signetti to him. I think he's got it. To that level, I don't know. That's yet to be seen, but Jed Fish would probably be the guy that makes the most sense.
Let me throw one name at you, because he's coached in the state before, and he's also in the Big Ten, also another M school. PJ Flack. I mean, I've seen that.
That doesn't
out
get me
there.
fired up at all.
Yeah, and that's where I am. And then now we get into, what we talked about previously. Do you try and get creative with this, where you're going, hey, we don't need to get a guy with head coaching experience. Let's just go get the absolute best coordinator out there. And for me, I just have no idea why. And it could be one of those interview things. We've heard this about great coordinators before, where it's just so blatantly obvious. Why wouldn't you just give the keys to the kingdom to this guy to coach our team? I don't know why anybody never interviews Glenn Schumann and is never a head coach.
I had that conversation the
I
other
would
day.
Want. Oh, with someone in the know, or just in general?
About Schumann. He was at Alabama when I was there working. I was an intern. I think he was an analyst at the time. He has worked his way up. He's been steady. He's been at Georgia for such a long time. And then you think about guys like Will Stein, who are now getting the opportunity to coach in the SEC. I know North Carolina is a job that he's had his eye on and a job that he likes. I wonder if he's waiting out, hey, maybe one more year of a Belichick circus and, I'm in it. Because I think he was in the mix before Belichick ended up getting involved there. I don't know if he's waiting on the right one. I don't know if he's looking at it and say, hey, I got a great situation here at Georgia. But, he's been offered the defensive coordinator job with the Philadelphia Eagles, right? He chose to stay at Georgia. I'm with you. I'm surprised that there is not more buzz around him, because the guys that have only been at one place, they really intrigue me from the fact, they don't know anything else. Brian Hartline doesn't know anything else but Ohio State. And on one end, that's a little bit scary, right?
Yeah.
Because you like guys that have been other places and have seen it done different ways. On the other end, it's like, hey, man, there's no better run organization in the country than Ohio State. From talent identification to talent acquisition to player development to wins and losses. There's no better program. So Will Stein coming from Oregon, Brian Hartline coming from Ohio State, that kind of intrigues me. So Dan Lanning, right, who's only been at Alabama and Oregon, and sure, some other stops along the way, but that's all he knows. That's all he's been programmed like an absolute cyborg. That's all he knows. That would intrigue me about a guy like Glenn Schumann. And maybe Michigan's a little bit too big, but a job like North Carolina, a job like NC State, come on, dude, absolutely. Go roll the dice, bet on the upside. You and I talked about this. I don't think administrators, the majority of them, have the ability to do what Kentucky just did. And you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't work with Will Stein. I'm totally on board with that train of thought.
God, dude, I just love Glenn as a coach. I love because I don't know him, but I know people on Georgia staff, and God, I just love that guy. I freaking love what he's all about. I've listened to his coaching seminars, which I am a film study analyst, but what he's talking about is over my head. This guy just knows ball, and I'm like, why not? I want whatever Kirby Smart has in that cauldron of his at the University of Georgia. So, man, I am just perplexed that he is not a head coach yet, because the dude is so. Yeah, he will. It's just, man. But as far as Michigan is concerned, I don't know. But Cooper, your channel is going to blow up. You've got the whole college football industry that will learn at the end of this year to know how to say Petagna. Yeah, Cole, Kublik, Petagna. You're it. Nah. Shout out to Jansen. Shout out to the whole Petagna crew. For those that don't know, your brother was essentially my roommate my freshman year at a certain university. So I really appreciate you. And man, let's blow this thing up, baby. Let's go.
Hey, shout out. One more shout out. El Dorado, Arkansas. Stand up. Did I get it right?
Dude, did you do that on purpose? I'm serious. Did you do that?
We talked yesterday. I remember you telling me you're a man about town, El Dorado.
Dude, you will not. Your mind's about to be blown. Your mind's about to be blown.
Did I get the city right or no?
All right, so your whole life. No. Your mind, literally after I said that. Okay. So for those that don't know, for so long, so many people can't get your last name right. Petagna. The first time you came back on my channel, I got it wrong. And I know your family. I've stayed at your family's house before. You probably didn't know.
No, I remember. You had the headband on.
With your brother. Yeah.
Saints training camp.
At Saints camp. Yeah. So people have butchered your name your entire life. Okay. And believe it or not, I am a proud graduate of El Dorado High School. Dude, and just for you to unintentionally get that wrong. Dude, you're returning the favor of the small town in South Arkansas for how many times your name has been butchered by the masses just for you to butcher the small town.
I've been taking it.
Arkansas,
maybe it was just time for me to dish a little bit out, little hate.
Yeah. Really quickly, El Dorado is a good sports town. Daniel Gafford, starting center for the Mavericks.
Southwest Division.
From El Dorado. But truth be told, I work in the entertainment industry, and before you go on stage at some of the concert venues here in El Dorado, you'll see a sign on there that says El Dorado rhymes with tornado to give the artist. And then what do the artists do? What's up, El Dorado? We're turning this thing on up. I've seen it happen so many times. I've told the comedians I've worked with, hey, it's El Dorado. El Dorado, we in this gardening tool. What Ole Miss beat reporter called Lane Kiffin that word.
That's funny.
Because that word, that gardening utensil, rhymes with the incorrect pronunciation of El Dorado, Arkansas. But Cooper, thank you so much.
Carter the Power Bryant, you were the man. And one more last thing, guys. Carter the Power Bryant, literally one of the most genuine, authentic human beings that I've ever interacted with. And I mean that 110%. One of the best guys in the media space. Follow him at Power Hour LSU on X. You can also follow him at the same username on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe. And guys, let me issue just a little bit of an apology. It's been hectic. All right, I got a 5-month-old at home. No excuses. Been traveling a lot. No excuses. Holidays, no excuses. But we will be getting this thing back on track, rolling once a week. That's what I promised. That's what I delivered, or that's what I'm hoping to deliver. And we got the transfer portal coming up, so a lot more transfer portal content. Make sure to like and subscribe. For Carter Bryant, I'm Cooper Petagna. Thanks for tuning in to Coop's Corner. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. See you next time.